Who in this room is ready to be motivated? Raise your left hand. Keep it up. Who's ready to be inspired? Raise your right hand. And now I want you to turn around like this. And what does that feel like? A roller coaster, right? Welcome to life, where some days are absolutely phenomenal and others you want to puke. My name is Crystal Billings. I am a patient of Dr. Thomas Wright's, and some of you may know me as Lady Lipedema on social media. And I'll tell you really quick before I start why I named myself Lady Lipedema. When I met Dr. Wright a few years ago, he had taken a lot of images of my body and asked me if he could use them across the internet to bring awareness to lipedema, and I said yes. And then I saw myself in my underwear on the internet, and I'm like, what would my great-grandmother think? That is not very ladylike. So I call myself Lady Lipedema. I'm here to share my story with you today to bring you motivation and inspiration, what is possible, and I believe that anything is possible. I was born in the late 70s and raised in the 80s, when obesity, especially in children, was way less common. I quickly became the largest person in the room. And I remember, as low as an adolescent age, how I dreamed about being an athlete. But I couldn't. I couldn't run fast, I couldn't throw a ball, and I couldn't move with ease because I was too fat. And people let me know it. So I played the drums instead. And I channeled all of my negative energy and emotions into playing the most exquisite music because the sounds healed my pain and the beat of the drums caressed my heart. By the time I was in high school, I had been teased and ridiculed so much for my size that I figured if the world was going to be filled with so many critics and I was expected to survive, that I better overcome every single fear that I would ever have. And the first was standing in front of people. And the second, my reflection in the mirror. I would be seen and heard, eyes piercing with judgment, because I was big and unattractive and quiet to those who did not know me. But I was funny and smart and beautiful to those who did. But I wanted to be seen, and I wanted to be heard because I had something to say. Toward the end of my senior year in high school, there was a competition to give the graduation speech. And I thought, oh, this is my chance, because it was in front of the entire student body and faculty. And I was so nervous and scared, but I wrote the most magnificent piece of advice, and I went up against the most well-known students in the school, and I won. And I still remember, as I was walking towards the stage, somebody in the audience yelled, "Moo!" I told myself to breathe, and I said, "You've got this." In that speech, I told my fellow classmates and faculty that life was like a book, and that each chapter was a significant accomplishment one has achieved. I told them to make their book mean something, because only they could provide the details in the remaining chapters. After high school, I went on a low-fat diet and I started to exercise. And I was very successful in losing a significant amount of weight, 122 pounds to be exact. But slowly, I became very unhealthy and I started picking habits of drinking and smoking and becoming dependent upon the latest and greatest diet pill. I kept that weight off for 8 years and I enrolled in college to get a better understanding of human behavior, and I received a degree in psychology in 2005 from Portland State University. And in my last year of college, I got pregnant with my son, and I gained all of the weight back, and some that I previously lost in my 20s. But it was different this time. Feeling a human being inside of my body growing is to this day the most incredible experience I have ever felt. And I promised myself from that day on, 20 years ago, that I would never disrespect my body again with fad diets or unnecessary thoughts of self-sabotage. My son taught me before he was ever even born how to love my body unconditionally. I told myself that my large arms were the same large arms that my great-grandmother had, and they gave good hugs. And my large thighs, they birthed a human being. Wow. The decade of my 30s, I gained and lost the same exact weight repetitively. And I prayed to God that I would find the answers to my years of obesity because it didn't make any sense. I ate well and I exercised, but I could not keep the weight off. And while I loved myself at every single stage of my life, I was exhausted emotionally, mentally, and physically from the constant battle with gravity. And it was getting increasingly more difficult to move. In 2017, I dislocated my knee riding a bike in Hawaii, and no doctor wanted to work on me because of my morbid obesity, even though I had absolutely no comorbidities. I did not have diabetes, I did not have high blood pressure, and I was incredibly healthy. I was just heavy. For the first time in my life, I experienced utter devastation as a direct reflection of my weight. How could I have fought all these years to be leaner, to have a frame that moved with ease, to lose hundreds of pounds over and over and over again, and my weight was going to leave me immobile? No way. I was not going down without a fight. I enrolled in the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and I learned about the history of obesity and our food system. And I received a degree to become a certified nutritional health coach, and I started cutting out foods with ingredients that I had for years believed were healthy, and I lost 60 pounds in just a few months. But that weight came back, and then some. Overworked and overwhelmed with life's responsibilities, I ended up at my heaviest in 2022, 312 pounds. I dreaded going to the grocery store, walking up hills, getting out of the bathtub, and even just getting out of bed. It had gotten so hard to move from the heaviness of my limbs despite my years and efforts to live a healthy lifestyle. And then God answered my prayers. I saw a post on the internet that said, "Does your body look like this? You may not just be obese, you may have lipedema." And after all those years, I finally found it. I researched top medical professionals in the field, and I came across Dr. Thomas Wright at Laser Vein and Liposuction Center. And 2 years after my diagnosis, my 40-year-old dream of becoming an athlete has come true. This is me.
To the dark, hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna
Susie, who I've known for 20 years. And I told her I was tired of the fight. And that I can't even hardly walk. And that they couldn't fix my leg until I lost weight, and I didn't know what I was going to do because I'm strong and I've always lost weight, but I'm hurt, and it hurts really bad. My leg hurts, and I can lose the weight, but I just didn't understand how I was going to do it without being, you know, in the gym all the time and being, you know, I knew that I could lose it again. I've lost 60, 70, 80, and, you know, my heaviest I'd lost 120 pounds. And
Won't let them break me down, 'cause I know that there's a place for us. Oh, we are going on. The sharpest words wanna cut me down. I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown the mind. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And the mountain knows the feet I drum. I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apology. This is me. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send a blood, gonna drown mine. This is brave, this is bruised, this is who I'm meant to be. This is me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that beyond words. You know, I put on this slide here, it says, you become unstoppable when you master things that people cannot take away from you, like your mindset, your character, and your personality. I just want to first stop for a second, and I'm going to thank every single individual in this room right now because I am truly honored. And a special thanks to all of the amazing doctors and researchers who have dedicated their lives to understanding, diagnosing, and treating lipedema. A huge thank you to Dr. Thomas Wright and his entire team who have been my personal heroes in managing this disease, and Dr. Karen Erbst, who I studied and followed in depth after my diagnosis, and I followed her nutritional guidelines in managing my inflammation and losing weight. And to the entire FDR conference staff, my sincere gratitude. Your work really means something and it changes lives. And lastly, to my mother, Deb, and my husband, Les, who took care of me when I was a total baby trying to get into compressions after every single surgery. Thank you. I don't have a lot of time here today with you, but I did choose the most significant parts of my life to share and the most impactful lessons that I've learned on my road to healing and recovery after I was diagnosed with stage 3, type 3 and 4 Lipo-Lymphedema. In each decade of my life, I try to incorporate the most influential lessons that I've learned, and anything less significant, I leave it in the past. So when I move forward, I move with an armor of strength and healing that is absent of regret. Who am I? My name is Crystal Billings. I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, where I went to elementary school and high school. I moved to Oklahoma City to be around my biological father, who passed away about 15 years ago after high school. And I got a degree in police science because at that time I wanted to be a lawyer. Any lawyers in the crowd? I changed my mind. And so I transferred back to Portland State University, where I got my degree in psychology because I loved the human mind. I love the clinical parts of it. And then recently I was granted a degree in 2020 with a nutritional degree, and then I just extended my degree in understanding hormones because, as you've seen, my lipedema presented itself at puberty, and then it raged again at childbirth. So I knew that I was going to go into menopause, and I wanted to know everything about hormones that I could. So I extended my degree in that. I own a consulting company out of Spokane, Washington, which helps businesses grow, and I help them teach customer service on how to retain their clientele and grow their businesses. And then I have a really cool little tanning salon boutique. I want to talk to you about the power of positive thinking because it's only appropriate to start here because this is my life's motto, and that's how powerful your thoughts are. Whenever I've been asked, how did you do that? How did you do that? I said, I visualized it. If you visualize yourself succeeding, you will succeed. And if you say you can, you can. And if you say you can't, you won't. And manifestation, which is a law of attraction, is a spiritual belief that positive or negative thoughts bring on positive or negative experiences. I mean, when was the last time somebody had a bad day that you were around that just turned their attitude around? It is easier to bring somebody that is positive down to a negative level than it is to bring a negative person to a positive level. When I was in college, I studied two really incredible psychologists who I loved. The first one was Maslow. His name is Abraham Maslow, and he's an American psychologist who developed a theory of hierarchy of human needs. And his theory suggested that people have a number of basic needs that must be met first before they move up the hierarchy to pursue more social, emotional, and self-actualizing needs. And I really wanted to be everything when I was a kid, a lawyer, a model, all the above, an athlete. And I realized when I was studying Maslow that I wanted to reach that level of self-actualization as quickly as possible, which is the desire to become all that you can become. He also developed the humanistic theory, which is a belief that people have an unlimited potential for growth. It is a pretty fascinating thing when you think about the human brain. It doesn't even matter how old you are. You can always learn something new. Always. The human brain is fascinating. Another psychologist that I absolutely adored was a guy by the name of Erik Erikson. Erikson was an ego psychologist who developed one of the most popular and influential theories of development. And he says that you go through stages of life at every age, and there's 8 stages, and you're going to be one way or the other. And at the last stage of life, which is typically 65 years and above, you're going to get to a point where you either live with integrity or despair. And if you live with integrity, you're going to look back on your life and you're going to say, wow, look at all the things that I did. You're going to be happy. You're going to be joyful. You're going to say, you know what? If I die tomorrow, I'm cool. I did all the things that I needed to. But if you live with despair, you're going to be miserable. You're going to look back on life and you're going to say, I'm not ready to go. I haven't done this. I haven't done that. And you're not going to be happy. And when I read and I studied Erikson, I thought, ooh, when I get that age, I want to live with integrity. In 2016, I was volunteering for a triathlon. This is me on my first 10K, woo woo. And it was the Ironman. If you don't know what the Ironman 70.3 is, 70.3 miles. It's a 1.2 mile swim, followed by a 56-mile bike ride and a half marathon or a 13-mile run. And I remember like volunteering, and I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do that. It was the ultimate sign for me of mobility. And people thought that I didn't exercise because I was fat, and I'm like, I'll show you wrong. So I'm like, I want to do that. But then the next year, I broke my knee. And that was an incredibly devastating time of my life. I was riding a bike on a beautiful day in Hawaii, and it had been raining and it was muddy out. There was an irrigation ditch in the middle of the field, and because the mud, I slid off my bike, my leg got caught under a pipe, and I tore my ACL, my PCL, and my MCL. I completely tore my tibia from my femur. And I made it to the hospital where they put my knee back in location and together, but I didn't have surgery at the hospital because I was in between insurances because I left my corporate job to own my own business. And I didn't have insurance in place, so I flew home. And once I arrived home, I had no idea the struggle that I would have finding a physician that was gonna fix my knee. I heard, wow, why are your legs so large? You need to lose weight before we can operate. A few physicians didn't do multiple ligament repair. And on that journey, until I found the doctor who was absolutely spectacular and incredible that fixed my knee, I encountered some of the most ignorant and unprofessional individuals in the medical field. But I knew that I needed to lose weight and I needed to do it fast so I could get my knee fixed, and I started doing research on weight loss with the absence of exercise, and I came across a program called Bright Line Eating by Susan Pierce Thompson, who's a PhD, and I loved this. So Bright Line Eating is, okay, the premise is no sugar, and I broke my knee in a sugarcane field, so I was like, oh God. This has got to be a sign, it's got to work, right? So no sugar, no flour, no artificial flavors, you get 3 meals a day, and you're not snacking in between. And it was great, it was fantastic, I loved it. What Susan Pierce Thompson taught me was the science behind white powders, sugar, flour, artificial flavors. Cocaine and heroin are all white powders, and they're addicting. So if you cut them out of your diet, guess what happens? You eliminate cravings, and it's phenomenal, and you lose a lot of weight. So what's cool about that is that I really enjoyed Bright Line Eating. While I was doing that program, I saw that there was an absolute need for people to pair their foods correctly. So I came up with a group online called Living a Simple Bright Life, and I would create menus every single week, and with a grocery shopping list as well as a recipe, and I posted them online every week, 21 meals. If you need help, I gotcha. It's one ingredient foods, and it's absolutely delicious. And it was when I was the admin of this group that I saw that post online that says, does your body look like this? You might not have obesity, you might be having lipedema. And I deleted the post because I thought it was spam. That drove me into my poor husband. I just like, oh, let me just do a meal service delivery company. I would get up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh, I got to make my meals for people now. So I developed a company called Healthy Human Express in 2020, which was a grass-fed, all organic meal service delivery company. And the food was delicious. No sugar, no flour, no artificial flavors. And it was so good. And we launched the company, and I was like, wow, this is going to be fantastic. But no, COVID hit. Does anybody remember that time? I was doing too much. You know, with the birth of the internet, it brought about so much false information, not only about spray tans, and I'm going to tell you that I was spray tanning somebody one day, and she asked me, she goes, wait, what turns people orange from spray tanning? And I started reciting what I believed was true. And then I thought to myself as I'm thinking, I'm like, is that actually even true? Because the internet says it's true, and the girl that trained me said it was true, but where did they get their information from? So I started questioning things, especially with COVID. Should you take the shot? Should you not take the shot? Who should you vote for? I don't know. Don't ask me my political views. But with the birth of the internet, it did bring a lot of information out into the world that was false. And I'm going to tell you right now, I work with Google directly. They do not fact check people's websites. Anything can be online, and it can be false information, even if it looks like it came from a credible source. So what did I do? I was told by a friend to read this book called Conversations with God, and I loved it because it talked about how our truths are based upon our experiences, and maybe it was passed down to us. So at this time, I decided to just eliminate all of my beliefs and build them back up based upon what I truly believed. And it turns out what turned people orange, by the way, was not at all what they said it was. I don't have time to talk about that today, but if you want to know, it's pretty scientific. The Institute for Integrative Nutrition was a very incredible opportunity. It's a school out of New York that's a year curriculum, and I did it in 6 months. And what I loved about Institute for Integrative Nutrition is it talked about every single thing that you need to do off the plate in order to nourish yourself on the plate. Things that affect what you eat, like your joy, your creativity, your work, your finances, your family life. I absolutely had the most incredible time when I learned all about nutrition. I studied over 200 diets. There's even a diet called Japanese Women Are Thin. I'm like, wow, that's cool. But over 200 diets. And you know, I was doing too much. I was building a business and launching it and trying to be an integral part of both of my other companies, and my son was going through a really tough time with COVID. And, you know, I kept hearing this voice that said, Crystal, you need to start taking care of yourself and before you take care of anybody else. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I got it. I've heard that before, right? But that same voice said, what are you doing? You're trying to sell healthy food to people and you're over 300 pounds. Nobody's going to believe you. And even though I knew what I was talking about, perception is reality in a lot of people's minds. So the day that I called the bank to shut that account down for the business is the day that I got online and I started researching lipedema. And I came across 3 different websites and I sent out emails to 3 different offices. I didn't want to walk away from that large investment that I put into the meal service delivery company, but I knew that God would provide and I would overcome. I chose Dr. Wright because when I spoke to the staff, they were kind and they were caring and they listened to me. And I booked a consultation with the nurse and then an in-person consult, which landed me in St. Louis, Missouri at the end of July in 2022. And when I met Dr. Wright, he gave me his time, his care, and his knowledge. And I tell people that I was just walking through life collecting my truths, and I came across this hidden castle with this wizard that lived there, and he's like, welcome to the Lipedema castle. I'm Dr. Wright. He didn't really say that. But I felt like it was a dream come true when he said, yes, you have lipedema, stage 3, type 3 and 4, and the lipedema has caused lymphedema, so you have lipo-lymphedema. I was really overwhelmed, but I'm like, this is great. But I was ecstatic that after all these years, I actually had a fat disorder. That was so cool to me. But from then on, I wanted to know as much as possible about the disease and do whatever research that I could to manage it. So I started researching instantly. I came across Dr. Karen Earps and her work on nutrition. And it was like she was Willy Wonka, and I was Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. And if I ate anything that caused inflammation, I would balloon up like Violet. So I just didn't do it. Yeah, sometimes you got to play games with yourself in order to be successful. This is me. The left one is a video of me and my mobility when I started with Dr. Wright in 2022. I don't know if you can play that, but so much diseased tissue, especially on my lower body. Lymphedema and lipedema nutrition, Dr. Karen Earps, we've all met her, absolutely incredible. I studied her work. It was such a pleasure to meet her this weekend. And I started following the RAD diet, the Rare Adipose Disorder diet. And one of the reasons why I knew that that was the diet that I was following is because I knew that the Mediterranean diet was the healthiest diet on the planet. And you can actually research that and find out that that is absolutely true. And the RAD diet is a modified version of the Mediterranean diet. And if you would like to follow what I followed, go to lymphnotes.com and then look for the nutrition, or you can purchase that book, Lipedema. I also started researching Dr. Jason Fung. He is a award-winning doctor, and he wrote the Obesity Code. And I started fasting, because if you asked me and told me that I was going to be fasting for weight loss, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. I need to eat. But there are so many incredible things that our body does that we don't know about. My key takeaways from reading the Obesity Code by Jason Fung was that he says your body has absolutely no idea what a calorie is. He says that all it knows is the hormonal response that it has to food, which makes total sense. So I started fasting. He also says that obesity is not caused by an excess of calories, but instead a body weight that is too high because of the hormonal imbalance in the body. So what did I do? You know, I started fasting. I had surgeries from Dr. Wright. I eliminated inflammatory foods, which for me was dairy, red meat, pork, and salts. I had already been eating this way beforehand, so I did not have to eliminate much of anything to lose all that weight. I exercised, I got lymphatic drainage massages, and I had 5 different lipedema surgeries. I had to have my saphenous vein corrected first because my saphenous vein was pumping fluid to my leg and to the bottom of my foot and not back to the heart. And then I finished sclerotherapy because I had horrible varicose veins at the end of last year. My starting weight on 7/27 was 305.6. I was 53% body fat. And I went through here and I wanted to monitor what my weight was and what food was doing for me because I used to be so scared of that scale. I didn't want to step on it. I didn't want to go to the doctor's office because they were going to weigh me and I was going to feel terrible about my weight. But I wanted to know what kind of body fat I was losing. Was it muscle? Was it fat? Where was it at? And today I weigh 160 pounds and I am 40% body fat. Thank you. I'm going to go through this. I think I might be out of time, but we're going to finish this up. This is me. This is the day that I met Dr. Wright. It's the pictures, and then my last post-op, which was, well, I had one, but that's from last year. And my side, my back, which I loved my butt. It looked like he gave me a butt lift. Thank you. Didn't even have to pay for that. But I thought it was great. The amount of diseased tissue that he took off of my backside was phenomenal. I couldn't squat. I couldn't bend my knee. I was 5 degrees away from being dangerous to walk up or down the stairs. This was a critical surgery for me to have if I wanted to keep mobility. This is me currently. The left pictures, of course, when I started. The right pictures are new pictures. The left picture here is the month before I met Dr. Thomas Wright. I was walking downtown at a Hoop Fest, which is a really awesome basketball tournament in Spokane, Washington. And I remember this day very well because I could not walk around town and I was just so exhausted. So when I lost the weight, I couldn't swim because I was getting all these procedures done and I had open incisions. So when I jumped back in the pool, I almost drowned myself because all my fat was gone. I was like, oh my God, did I lie to myself all those years? I thought I was a great swimmer. This is awful. So I joined the master's swim team. I'm like, well, shoot. I'll just join the swim team, and I guess I have to learn how to swim. Because I wanted to do the Ironman, and you have to know how to swim to do the Ironman. And I started doing marathons. And this is a picture of me with one of the marathons. And that was really hard because I had to learn how to pick up my legs because for so long they had been so heavy that my neural pathways from my brain to my body was still thinking that they were super heavy. And I'm like, come on, you can move faster than this. You're definitely not going to make it to the end of the finish line on an Ironman if you don't move it quicker. The first picture here is a picture of my an x-ray of my knee and all of that diseased tissue that was in my body prior to my lipedema reduction surgeries. And I went and I paid $300 to see the surgeon that fixed my knee 6 years ago. And I told him, he goes, wow, you lost a lot of weight. And I go, thank you. I actually don't need your help today. I just have a question. Am I going to do anything to my knee that's going to injure it if I do the Ironman? And he took this picture. And I said, I also wanted to thank you. Because at a time that I was low, you believed in me. And he goes, you were hustling. You were exercising when you lost weight. I was fixing your knee. But look at all of the diseased tissue gone. The mobility is crazy. Anything is possible. This is the design for my t-shirt. I will be competing in the Ironman 70.3 in Coeur d'Alene in 2 months. And it just so happens to be during Lipedema Awareness Month. So I'm like, hey girl, I'm putting my big girl self on my back and my little girl self so all of the crowd can see that anything is possible and bring awareness to lipedema as well. I'm finishing up. With my recent weight loss, this is really important because I really had to do a lot of soul searching and healing my deeper parts of myself. Because just like in my 20s, when I lost a massive amount of weight, I became the topic of every single body's conversation. And it was overwhelming and it was overstimulating. Like somehow I deserved attention and compliments from people that didn't even pay attention to me before. And why do they suddenly even care? I knew it was coming this time, and I wanted to be prepared to be able to step forward without any bitterness or anger of others always talking about the size of my body, saying that my husband must be happier now that I lost all the weight, and making assumptions that my heaviness was from lack of exercise or a bad diet. And it was hard for me to accept the compliments because it made me feel like I had to defend my former big self. Because she was worthy, and she was beautiful, and she was charismatic. But I slowly worked with an energy healer, and I went to yoga, and I started to learn how to accept compliments a little bit better, and others' intentions more. And I became lighthearted about others' judgments and comments. And I thought, you know what, Crystal? You deserve this. You did it. You made it, and you traveled the road wisely, and you stepped into the image you always saw in the mirror that you wanted. And I'm going to tell you right now, if God gave me the choice on the day that I was born, whether to be born with or without lipedema, I'm taking the lipedema. Because through my trials and my tribulations and through the pain and the steepness of my climb and the views along my journey, it has led to unimaginable strength, resilience, acceptance, and a character I am proud of. And if you can live through a fat disorder, holy smokes. Okay, I'm done. But I will leave you with this last thing. It's my favorite poem by Robert Frost. He says, "Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." I'm sorry I went over it. Thank you.